All right, bringing it down. Waiting for Scott to walk into the studio here before I turn the music down and bring his mic. Here's your mic. There you go. Give me a sound check there, Scott.
You didn't even do an intro.
I did not.
Do an intro?
Okay.
Where's the intro?
They got these mixed around. Okay, so there you go. Welcome to Prepper Talk Radio. You're listening to Shane and Scott here on this Friday afternoon.
Booyah.
It's like a breath of fresh air.
Weather's good. I don't know where you are in the U.S., but hopefully you're having a good time. Disasters are plenty internationally. Oh, my gosh. Poor Japan.
I was going to text you yesterday, Scott, saying, did you see all the alerts coming across your phone?
Yeah.
The past couple of days?
Solar flare issues, magnitude 6.8, earthquakes, 7.8 in Fiji, the tsunami, and everything in Japan. Oh my gosh! If these are not signs of the end times, if you're not scriptural, if you're not biblical, bear with us for a second. Shane just tried to cut me off.
Sorry, that was me.
Just because I said biblical.
Cut you off.
Biblical, cut me off. No.
No.
But yeah, like if you subscribe to any of that at all, like you're gonna see, like you're paying attention, you're seeing everything happening. There's so much turmoil in the world. Like it's not a matter of if, it's always a matter of when. And in preparedness, that's the mindset you need to take. Not to be worried, but to be
adequately prepared.
Right?
Yeah,
you want to plan ahead and practice ahead so that you're not freaking out when the moment comes.
And of course, I always am watching the financial markets as well. That's something that I do. Not that I completely understand them, but everybody asks the question: when is this going to happen? When is the stock market going to collapse? When is this? It doesn't matter when. Whenever
it happens is when it happens,
and that's absolutely true. But what I wanted to bring out is when is now. When you ask the question when, it's now. It really is truly happening now. If you look in the emerging markets, what's going on there, and all the different currencies all around the world, and the U.S. dollar's got a little bit of strength in it. Yep. But what's happening to currencies all around the world?
They're all over the place.
They're
down,
then they're collapsing. And like in, for example, in Venezuela.
I
had
a passenger in my car. I drive part time for Lyft, and it's seriously my favorite thing because I just get to talk to people all the time, and prepping is my probably number 3 topic of all the car rides. Number 1 is food because I'm always hungry. And people love to talk about food. But I had a guy from Venezuela, and we talked about the whole crash and the socialism problem. And and he's just like, I am so happy to be out of Venezuela. And he was just here in Utah visiting, but he lives in Miami. And he's talking. He's done journalism. He's now works for a veterinary office as a manager, and he's working on his master's. But he talks about all the different things that are going nuts in Venezuela that are affecting his family. And they're trying to flee so they can get somewhere so they can find resources and find food. And there's just no options.
Well, we've got a call here on line 4. We're expecting a guest, but maybe I gave out the wrong number. Let's see who this is. Hello, you're live here on Prepper Talk Radio. Who have I got here?
Well, thank you. This is Truck Driver Ray.
Oh, hey Truck Driver Ray. How you doing, man?
Well, good. I'm a third-time caller now.
Yeah. You're getting to be a regular fixture here on Prepper Talk Radio.
What have you got for us, Ray?
Well, I can't remember which one it is, but I heard there's a thing called deathbed repentance.
Well, you could imagine that there is something called deathbed repentance. No, go ahead. Sorry, Ray.
Well, no, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Is there like a deathbed marriage? I mean, how long does it take to establish a relationship?
That is a good question. If you watch some of the movies, it doesn't take very long.
Yeah, I'll say Hollywood lies to us, though. Hollywood tells us that lust is love. And actually, that's a big lie. We find out that if we're just into lust, then we just go from marriage to marriage to marriage to marriage.
Yep, you could absolutely be right. Now, how does this tie into the topic we're talking about, kind of collapse and turmoil and such that we kind of warming the show up with?
Well, deathbed repentance or deathbed marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, should we prepare for, hard times on our deathbed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, we never know what the future holds. Life has its ups and downs.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking of it. Yeah.
And I like your both of your show. How you kind of pick away at things and rotate things. I think the church says to rotate our food storage.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think the old way was buy something the last 25 years, put it in your basement, and then in 30 years throw it away.
That has been, I think, one of the reasons why a lot of people aren't prepping right now, because they threw away what they bought 25, 30 years ago, just like you said. But I like your. No, sorry, go ahead.
Now, do you remember when President Hinckley and Kimball kept warning people to pay off your bills, to get out of debt, and then what happened in 2006, 7, and 8?
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, they had the financial collapse there.
There was millions of people, unfortunately, that lost their homes.
Mm-hmm.
There was a housing crisis.
Oh, absolutely.
And unfortunately, people were borrowing on their equity, living week to week, and they kept being warned.
Well, and they were taking loans out just for interest only with balloon payments after 3 years and on stated income loans instead of actual proving that you can afford these homes. And so everyone was out leveraging themselves and put themselves in a horrible situation when that crash came. And so what did we learn from that? Are we applying anything from that time now? I would say we haven't as a society, because people are so consumer driven. They're getting back into, well, hey, what can I buy now? What can I do that? How can I leverage everything else I have so I can buy that shiny new thing? And that's the problem that we're facing.
Yeah, and I want to go back to your little deathbed analogy there. Not that I want to have that kind of mentality every day, but especially repentance. I mean, that's something we should be doing every day. And same with prepping, that's something we should be doing every day. Instead of having that last minute, the world is starting to collapse. I finally see it. My eyes are open. I finally see it. I'm going to repent. I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to start prepping. I'm going to start getting what I need. I'm going to start paying off debt once you see it. And at that point, it's typically too late. And that's kind of like like you're saying, like the deathbed repentance. And is that kind of where you were going with that, Ray?
Oh, did I lose you?
Oh, yeah.
There you are. Yeah, and doesn't the true meaning of the word...
I lost you there, Ray. You kind of cut out on me. Are you there, Ray? Can you hear me? Well, sorry, Ray. We're going to have to let you go. We lost you there, so we appreciate your call. We'll hope to hear from you next time. And got some other lines ringing here. Let me go ahead and pick this up here. You got that, Scott? Am I going to pick it up? Okay. Well, I appreciate your call, Ray. And I guess that is my initial message for this afternoon is things are happening around us. And you have to have your eyes open in order to see those things. Because if you're involved in the day-to-day, the usual drudgery of the day-to-day in your job, you're probably not going to see these things that are happening. Like I had mentioned, Venezuela, we all kind of have seen what's going on there. Inflation is over 43,000% this year. They expect it to hit over 1,000,000% this year. And that's the way things happen. They go parabolically. They go quickly. And if we look at other countries as well, similar things are happening. Like Argentina, for example. Their interest rate was at 45% just a few weeks ago. The government raised it to 60% interest. And that is that's not something I can even comprehend. Although I believe in the future 60% may possibly seem good at some point, where interest rates will have to be so high in order to compensate for collapsing currencies. And that's really what's happening in these different countries. And to list a few others, Turkey, South Africa, India, Indonesia, all these countries are in distress. And the reason we're not seeing it here in the U.S., we're seeing a bit of what's called maybe more of a melt-up. And the reason we're not seeing it is because of all the money that's being printed, that has been printed. It will eventually show its ugly head, and we will eventually see the same things here as Venezuela and Argentina and other countries are seeing in their areas, but we're just not seeing it here yet. But it doesn't mean we're not going to see those types of crazy interest rates, the inflation, the collapsing currencies. But
it's guaranteed if we keep moving the way we're moving it's a result of the actions that we're taking nationally that are going to cause that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually internationally, if we keep moving internationally in that same direction. I think what we need to focus on, though, is how can we better our current situation. And that's, I think, where it leads into minimalist prepping, right?
Mm-hmm.
Simplifying. And I think we've got a really good opportunity today. We've got our good buddy Tim Ralston, famous for Doomsday Preppers, one of the originals, one of the best known from the TV show National Geographic's Doomsday Preppers, but also author, and most importantly, inventor. And congratulations, just got engaged. The guy, Tim Ralston, is live on the radio with us today. And Tim, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks, guys, for having me. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you just launched a book a little while ago, Minimalist Prepper.
That's what I did, yeah.
What got you thinking that way? I mean, because you're Mr. Gearhead, and it was kind of fun to see you kind of go from Mr. Gearhead to, okay, more minimalist, because it's an interesting transition that we're also going through ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the truth be told, I'm getting older, and I just can't lift all that stuff, so I had to start paring it down so I can actually lift it for more than 10 minutes and get it on and off a truck.
Well, we're on the same boat as you, Tim, so we get it.
Yeah. I actually, it's one of those things that once you go out there in the field and actually practice, and I've been able to do a lot more testing. I've been doing a lot of testing of new gear and equipment and designing lots of stuff. So it seems like every time I go out, I come back and then I reevaluate my bag. What did I use? What didn't I use? And I started to pare it down. And then I've been hit so many times by people that ask me, okay, Tim, what do I need? I'm just getting into prepping. And they have this sense of panic. I mean, I just had dinner with a really nice young couple that had 5 kids. So they have, 5 more factors that really gave them an urgency to want to start prepping. But when we start talking about it, they had such anxiety and such, motivation to make it happen. They were just like, what do I do? What do I do? And I said, well, this is what I would do if I were you. This is the place that you start. And if you have just the minimal items, then that you truly need to survive and focus more on education more so than gear, you can go a lot further and be a little bit more MacGyver-ish and I think be able to make it out alive. So that's kind of what the book is all about and the premise behind it. And then the one thing that a lot of people hit me is can't afford it, can't afford all the good gear, can't make it happen. I'm like,
I think
that's and so people don't even start.
Well, and I think that's the best part of the book for me is when you look at what you have that's sitting around, and you address that in the book very well. Like, what do you have sitting around that's not doing anything that you're not using, that you haven't used in a long time? Like your story about the wrenches. I think that's perfect. We're about to hit a break, so I'll just go quickly into it. You basically say there's money in junk. Maybe it's not really junk, and to the right people, nearly anything has value. Well, you sold, 48 wrenches to one guy for $200. How many of us have, the proverbially 48 wrenches lying around? I've got baseball cards and stuff that's lying around that I'm not using that I don't need.
You have a little sentimental attachment to them, probably, but
no. Ever since I had kids, a lot of my stuff that I own became useless to me. Like the value, the childhood memory. No, my kids' memories, like those new memories, are way more important to me than looking back at this other stuff. And so I can sell like redundancies pretty easily.
That's what it is you sell, like you said, the redundancies, but I always looked at it as like, okay, if it hits the fan tomorrow, what in this room could I really use?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's gonna save my life, and what is just a decoration or a gadget or a trinket, or I have 5 of them. And I look at it as like, once I've purged that, then got the important things, then I can go back to collecting. And
Tim, we're up against our hard break now, so we're gonna go to break. Let's come back and we'll talk about this. Thanks for sticking with us here on Prepper Talk Radio.
With the splash.
All right, welcome back to Prepper Talk Radio here on K-Talk AM 1640 in Salt Lake City. I am Shane. This is Scott, and we've got our good buddy Tim Ralston on the phone with us as well. Tim, you still there?
Hey, yes, I'm here.
All right, awesome.
Sweet. So let's jump back into the book for a second and talking about, how there's so much stuff that we have that we can get rid of. I mean, we talked about the wrenches. There's also, you talked about chainsaws. You had 2 chainsaws, I think, and you don't use them.
Silky.
Well, the book, I was so proud of you. Okay, in your book, you actually pull out the silky saw. That you got the katana, right?
Yeah, I got the katana, the big boy.
That's the big boy. See, I've got a handheld, the smaller one, and then Shane's got the ultralight.
I've got a couple
smaller
of
one, and then you've got the medium,
the 2000, which
the 2000.
is the 15-inch. But yeah, just like you're saying, Tim, is prepping and minimalism really fits hand in glove. It really fits together. And I guess taking this chainsaw thing a little further is, as a prepper, yes, I would love to have a nice steel chainsaw or Husqvarna, but how often am I realistically going to use it unless I'm out building my own homestead, right? Not very likely.
Well, I look at that as a tool for like rebuilding your city, right?
Yep.
If you're in a situation where it's a natural disaster, it's not an EMP or end of the world as we know it scenario, where you've got to go clear trees, or you've got that's a good time to have a chainsaw. If you've got all your other stuff taken care of first. Because guess what? Someone else is going to have a chainsaw in your neighborhood.
But for a quarter of the price, you could get this katana, this silky katana. It's a very long, handheld Japanese pull saw. And there's lots of different sizes and versions of it. And I have one in my go bag. I have a larger one for bushcrafting, whatever you want to call it. And then there's the big one, which really does compete with the chainsaw. Yes, it takes some effort, some fitness to use this thing, but it is an amazing tool, and I think we can all evaluate our preps a little more close and not think I've got to have the best chainsaw out there. I've got to have all these things when you can do with so much less.
You can do with a high quality, smaller cost product, right? Like
exactly.
I love Silky because my brother's is a tree feller,
arborist,
right? He's an arborist. He takes down the biggest trees, and while he's climbing, he's got his Silky on his hip, and he whips that thing out and. Branch gone. Branch gone. If he doesn't need to start his chainsaw, he won't start his chainsaw. And he's through these little small branches super lightning fast.
And of course, that's one simple example of all the preps we carry. Like Tim said, we can't carry everything we need. So the mindset of a minimalist prepper, like you described in your book, Tim, is where I think, and Scott and I have mentioned this over the weeks and months, is where we are actually are gravitating. That's where our mindset's going, is to more a minimalist, not only lifestyle, but also in our preps.
Yeah. I tell you, when you look at and weight carry, like you're saying, make it light, and the weight of if you had a cutting implement, you had to do something. You had to cut a tree down, and you had 2 guys side by side, equal strength, guy with a silky saw or a big sharp axe. That axe is going to take more energy to cut that tree down, and it's a lot more dangerous, and it's just not, it might be romantic to think, I have this big, huge axe, but if it weighs 5 pounds and a silky saw weighs only less than a pound and cuts easier and you don't use as much energy, it just makes sense. Yeah, just go out there and do it in the field for a while, then you'll understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually got a good side-by-side comparison last summer, scout camp. I had my silky saw, and the other scoutmaster had just a traditional bow saw. And we're good guys, we need some firewood.
They'll smoke it.
And I had 5 scouts carrying the firewood back that my silky saw provided, and he had 1 scout carrying the firewood back that his regular bow saw provided. And it was because I got 5 times more work done. We took 6 scouts with us. We found a few fallen trees, and we're like, here we go. These are the perfect rounds. And we were done so fast. And it's a testament to the right tool reduces so much.
And it has multiple purposes as well, and not just... I'd love my my Wetterling's axe. I really do. It has its purpose. I don't carry it with me. It's not my go bag, but it has a purpose in, like you say, when it comes to, say, homesteading or rebuilding or basically cutting a lot of wood for fire.
Yeah, splitting wood is
where you don't need to carry that thing with you. You really don't need to necessarily bug out, depending on your plan. But we had started out kind of this conversation with cleaning house to come up with money to put towards your preps, like your baseball cards. Like I did this a long time ago. Went through and said, I really don't need these things. I don't use them very often. If I need to, I can rent it or I can borrow this. I'm going to I'm going to get rid of it. And the way my mind thinks is, okay, I can take this $200 and I can buy some more silver. Or some more food. Mine goes to silver.
Silver's tasty. Yeah. Buy what you need, or what's relevant in your situation. Right. You've been prepping for a long time, Shane, so you've got a lot more than a new beginner's going to have. Right. So starting small with the basics, thinking shelter first. Clothing, gear that's going to keep you warm. Starting there, I think, is the most important thing, because I just did an experiment a few weeks ago where I just went on a water fast to see how I'd survive on a daily basis. No food.
Drinking only water.
The first 18 hours, great. I was like, sweet, this is easy. Then all of a sudden, the headaches kicked in from the lack of caffeine that I usually drink on a daily basis, and the detoxing of my body. And that took another probably 12 hours to get out of my system. And then I was fine, but I couldn't exert a ton of energy. If I exerted a ton of energy, I'd get tired quickly. But as long as I was doing moderate, standard, like nothing too crazy, I was fine until on the 5th day, I actually went and helped my brother, who's a tree trimmer. We took down 4 cottonwoods that day, and I was hauling everything. I was burning a ton of calories, and I quickly realized that in a survival situation, you cannot expend that kind of energy with that on a ketosis situation. You've got to have calories to be putting into your body. But it also gave me the context of, wow, I actually went 4.5 days and it was okay.
Yeah,
but
that's amazing.
When you just jump into that, you're going to be having that psychological problem of a survival situation. How do I deal with this? And so going back and figuring out, okay, what do I really need? Water, shelter, those are your first priorities.
Yeah, and Tim starts out in his book. Tim, you start out in your book with basically making a plan, just like where everything else should start, making a plan.
But planning backwards. Explain what you meant by that.
Well,
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, but planning for whatever project that I'm doing, whether I'm inventing a new project, here's the goal, this is what I want to end up with, and then I work the plan backwards. Just like as an example, if I have a family, well, I'll give you the perfect example, is my, now I can say future father-in-law, mega preppers. I had a little prepper envy, to be honest with you, going over to their house. I'm like, holy moly. I couldn't believe the stuff these guys had. It was fantastic. And I was like going, okay, it was so, under the beds and every closet, and it was insane. There's stuff everywhere. And I'm like, well, do you have this? Yeah, I think I do. It might be somewhere. And I go, okay, well, let's just look at this. You don't have a plan. You have the stuff, but you don't have a plan. Yep. I go, who's coming here? How much do you have? I don't know. All the answers are, I don't know. And I go, well, that's the problem. We got to know what you got. And so it took me, it's ongoing. I've been 5 days, 12-hour days, organizing and putting things in the right order and what they have and stocking it up and figuring what they do and don't have. But the end goal was to get them extremely organized, give them an action plan of, okay, here's where we're going to be. This is the bug-in situation. What if we have to go somewhere else? Then we're going to take a quarter of this and we're going to place it at this, this many miles down the road till eventually we get up to the mountains where they have another location. And so, that was the end goal, is to get to that location. So we worked the plan backwards, and plan step 1 was, God, we got to declutter and clean and figure out what you've got. And then we started going from there. So it's just where do you want to go? And then you just walk the steps backwards to where you're at right now. And then the problems don't seem so tough. Each goal seems to be easier. So like if you have 0 preps and you want to become self-sufficient and be able to take care of your family, then how much are you going to need? How many people are in your family? And then you work the problem backwards and then take it in priority. What's the first priority? Is it to get gold and silver? Nope. Bullets, guns, possibly food. Number 1, food, water. And then shelter, okay. Transportation, not so much. You get all the things that are, priority first, so that I always thought, well, if it happens tomorrow, at least I have this. If it happens tomorrow, I have this. And once I've got all those elements of my survival plan put together. Like I said, boy, howdy, once that plan comes together, then the calm comes over and you're going, okay. And I don't have to face that woman I faced the other night at dinner where she was just panicked going,
Right.
oh my gosh, what do you do? Because I tend to, when I talk to new people, I put my bad guy hat on, and they all think, okay, this is what's going to happen. I go, no, I'm a bad guy. This is what I'm going to do to you. You would do that? And I'm like, yeah, other people have bad guys' hats on, and that's what they're going to do. So if you know that's what they're going to do, let's plan for that. So
it's interesting. Playing the devil's advocate side of things, or the bad guy side of things. It's like people don't want to think about that, but you have to when you're working your plan out. You have to understand if there's a negative element now, that negative element's going to exponentially increase, just like the positive element's going to exponentially increase during disaster, during Teotihuacan, right? The end of the world as we know it. Whatever the SHTF scenario is, those will increase. And the longer the problem's going on, the more they'll increase. Yeah. Especially the bad element. And so you have to protect against that. And I think people don't take that into account because they think, oh, we'll just all be working together to survive. And you address that also in your book, is like identifying who has skills that you can work with. I mean, you talked about the group of guys that are like, hey, we need to set up a group, but I think they were all over 65 and couldn't throw a punch, or I don't remember exactly how you put it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I actually in my group, we just got we got a doctor on our group. Finally, I found one that had that right mindset and right skill sets, and so he's coming into the group. So I'm
nice.
pretty happy. So it's getting to be pretty tight, my group. So, but you have to be very picky about that, but everyone has to come in with a skill, and they got to be an asset, not a liability. And
so, what are your skills that you bring to the group?
I don't have any yet. I'm just I'm faking it right now. I just kind of go along with everybody else. They seem to think I know what I'm doing, but I practice. I hate the word expert. Can't stand when someone calls me that.
Yeah.
There's so many guys that know so much more than I do. It's just I have more passion about it than they do. And I want to learn everything, not just one skill set. It's I look at it. You got to be a jack of all trades, and hopefully a master of a few of them. And so I'm constantly out there trying to learn. If I don't know it, I'm going to find someone who's really good at it. And if I can just get a sliver of their knowledge, so courses that are offered out there are fantastic. Whether it's from firearms, self-defense, up to medicine. Medicine was my weakness. I wanted to learn a lot more about medicine. The herbal stuff. Not okay, great. Here's I can go to the drugstore. I look at that. That'll be the first thing that's pillaged in that. It's just going to be gone. So then you're like, uh-oh. So you gotta be able to make your own medicine, I think, and that's just learning the old skills, the old ways. So.
I think with the minimalist prepper mindset, it kind of reverts to more the survival during a survival situation, not the thriving. Would I be incorrect?
I would argue against that.
Okay.
And here's my point. So from a minimalist standpoint, you're using economy as your benefit, right? It's the economy of what you have versus, the things that in a stockpile scenario, those things own you, right? Mm-hmm. And when you understand how to use less to get through things, passive solutions, like all my water filtration systems are gravity forced, right? Passive solutions. Water procurement, I've got ponds uphill, passive solutions. Anything you can do to provide a passive solution and to provide, that's minimal is going to save you time, energy, worry. It's going to be something you can usually implement quickly and work together in a group quickly to resolve. Those are the types of things that I like, and that's minimalist, right? Minimalist is like get rid of the unnecessary, focus on the important needs. So it's like triaging your life as opposed to triaging a bunch of medical scenarios, right? It's triaging your life and prioritizing the most important things.
I totally like that explanation because I felt that way for a long time, that my gear kind of dictated exactly what I could and couldn't do. And then I kept doing role playing and running different scenarios through my head about, okay, well, what if? I always play the what if game, right? So what if this happens? What if that happens? And every time you start playing that game with yourself, you're going, man, there's only one of me. I can only carry so much. But, you know, I always thrive at being a MacGyver, and I can make something out of nothing. And I'm thinking to myself, well, geez, if I had just the basic stuff that would help me make something out of nothing, no matter where I go, if I have to leave my area. That's why I've gone so far away from a bugging in kind of thought pattern and being a lot more nomadic. I thought to myself, if it was hitting the fan, I don't want to be tied to one area. I want to be mobile. I want to be able to have the knowledge to set up a good base camp, but if I wanted to leave it, I could leave it, versus saying, oh, I'm staying in place and I'm not moving because I think I can defend it. I'm like, that's the guy I had dinner with the other day. He's like, I have just this fantastic home. It's got 8-foot walls, and I go, really? 8-foot walls? Okay, I have a big truck. I'll run right through that wall. And I just kept playing the bad guy scenario. And then he goes, well, I have 20,000 rounds. Okay, and how many guns do you have? How many people are pulling the trigger? And I go, I've got 50 more guys that are going to do it. And we're only going to come by at night with a Molotov cocktail and throw it on your house and burn you out. What are you going to do then? You know, and then I kept, every time he would say, I'm staying in, I go, how about if you did this? And then I gave him a different scenario, and it started to sink in. It's like, you have to be fluid when this stuff happens. And so knowledge is, I think, the key.
Yeah, it comes down to planning and knowledge. And I'd like to dig into that more on the other side of this break, our third segment of this hour. Tim, thanks for joining us, and we hope all of you will continue joining us after this break, where we'll continue talking with Tim Ralston. We're going to talk a little bit about the Scavenger 6, which you've got coming up, and all that kind of fun stuff after this next break, so stick around.
So get out there.
All right, let's get right back at this. You're listening to Shane Scott and Tim Ralston here on Prepper Talk Radio in Salt Lake City. And when we left, we were talking about kind of thriving versus surviving. And my question for you, Tim, is, does mindset make the difference between thriving and surviving?
I think 100%. I've seen guys that are minimalists, you know, especially the bushcraft guys.
Oh, I know.
You know, the guys that get out there and they have nothing but one satchel, a couple of knives, and
a wool blanket.
You know, a wool blanket, and they are just happier than can be, you know, with what they have. So, and they're thriving. And though we're thinking they're just surviving, you know, for them, it's their mindset is, you know, they're one with nature, and they don't need a lot to make it happen. So, I think it's that will to survive. And once you've found that will, then, you know, no matter where you're at, you can make yourself comfortable. And it doesn't take a ton to make you, you know, really, really comfortable.
Well, especially when you've kind of been minimalizing, right? The more you get used to that, like the simpler life gets.
You're doing it now.
The easier, now. The easier it is to be in a thriving situation later, because you don't have as many needs and you don't have as many expectations.
You better put up those finger air quotes. Needs, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that whole tiny home movement is really catching on. And, you know, people are, you know, not so worried about all the trappings and having the biggest house. It's, you know, do I have all the essential needs that I need to survive? I mean, day-to-day life, you know, in your real world versus, you know, just having excess, you know, puts more pressure on you. And, you know, if you learn to live with less, then it's going to be a lot easier. But, you know, in the survival situation, I always think, just like you know, tried out what can your body do before it starts breaking down. It's going out and practicing and seeing, you know, just how far can you push it, you know, so that when it does happen, or if it happens, then you know what you can do, and you won't push yourself too hard and get into a dangerous situation where, oh my gosh, you don't have the strength to get up that last hill when you really need to get up that hill. So
that's so true. And it's funny because it's like, once you've tried it out and tested it and you see what you can do or you can't, if you can, it gives you like this, whoa, I'm actually more capable than I thought. If you can't, then it gives you that, oh crap, that urgency I've got to get better prepared. I've got to get better. And for me, it's less items now, and it's more knowledge. Because I can overcome and adapt. I can reuse or repurpose or retool stuff. The more I know, I'm able to do that. The less I know, the more I'm dependent on having each and every of everything.
Yeah, this week I heard something that really caught my attention. And I've probably heard this before, but in SEAL training, they, obviously you're underwater a lot. Probably, I'm kind of visualizing this, right?
So imagine drowning.
Imagine
all the time,
drowning, and you feel like you're about to die. I mean, you're at that verge where you feel like I'm going to die. The truth and the fact is that you have about 40% more that you can give, about 40% more at that point. So I think with that mentality, in not just in military training, but in pretty much every situation in life, you feel like you're at the edge of your rope, and maybe we feel that financially or whatever. We feel that every day. I mean, we feel like I just can't do this anymore, but we really have a lot more that we can actually give, and it takes that practice and that preparing and that experimenting and that trying and failing to really realize that.
Yeah, and it's more than just that trying and failing. I think the failing is the operative phrase in that, right? The more we fail, the more we learn what doesn't work, the closer we are to having all the things, all the right things working. And it also creates resilience. Like, the more you can fail, like, this sounds like totally, I don't know if it's going to sound cliche or just totally like I'm a moron, but I actually enjoy what I learned from failing.
Oh yeah,
I try to analyze everything, and I've failed a lot. Like if there's
Tim's
one
never
thing
failed.
I'm really good at in life, it is failure. I am so freaking good at it.
Me too.
I can show you 1,000,001 ways to fail, but the best thing is each one of those failure points is now given me more skills, more knowledge, more adaptability, more resilience to try again or to try something different and to move forward instead of just sit after a failure and say, woe is me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's Tim, why don't you tell everybody where they can get your book, and let's kind of transition into guns and fun stuff and what you got coming up.
Well, the book can be done, I think they can still buy it on Kindle and also on Amazon. So it's still for sale on both those places.
Okay, so and you can go to your website, right? And
it just leads back over to Kindle and Amazon.
Yeah, Tim Ralston Live, and it'll just direct you right over there.
TimRalstonLive.com, and then it'll take you to Kindle. Okay, cool. So I've read it. Scott's read it. We definitely recommend it, especially if you are thinking, kind of the opposite of what we've been talking about today. We think like I got to have so much stuff that I feel overwhelmed that I'm not even going to start or try. Right? Please don't feel that way. Just get started, and you will realize how little you need.
Well, the nice
to
thing
only
is
survive and thrive.
Is Tim's book is it's not a heavy read. It's not. It's a light read, meaning it's quick, it's to the point, it's clear, it's concise, and it gives you a jumping off point for each of the different chapters. Like, here's where you can start. Here's what I've learned. Like, here's where I love. Tim's like, here's how I failed, and here's what works. Here's how I failed, and here's what works. And then here's how you implement all that. So go get the book, but we're going to jump ship on the book and Minimalist for a second, and let's talk Scavenger 6. We've talked about it before. It's such a cool platform. It took you, it seems like forever to get it all finally launched.
It's one of those things, when you guys are talking about failure going into new territories, building a gun is not easy. I thought, okay, we can figure this out. It's not rocket science, but I got to tell you, just getting it to where it is right now has been beyond what I thought and what I thought I could ever do. And we've failed so many different times with manufacturers, but we really did finally struck gold with a manufacturer in Chicago, Schmidt Tooling, and they have really picked up the ball. And we've actually went back to the drawing board after we actually had a gun that went bang, and we were just tweaking it. We went up there because our manufacturers here just couldn't keep up with production or even the thoughts of, getting it tooled up. We went up there, and these guys are big. They've been in business 75 years, and they have just a stellar reputation. And we've redone this thing again. And
I haven't
this
paid
is
attention to
literally
that. So you've
the
changed the
fourth
gun
time.
again.
Again, yes. Oh my God,
Killing me,
But-
Smalls.
I know, but we did it, and now it's like insane. I look at it and I giggle because it's so cool looking, but not just because it looks good. It functions better. Because I when I was at SHOT Show last time, I had a chance to talk to a lot of survival expert guys, and I said, "Here's our concept. This is what they're doing." We listen. I mean, I'm still a real small company, and the great thing about a small company is you can make changes on the fly, and that's what we did. We listened to all the design implements that people that have been out there that have a lot more experience than I do in firearm development, and they're saying, "Try this, try this, try that." Sit down with all the big engineers, and where I had a one guy engineer, now I have a team of people, and with this team of people, we changed the cylinder barrel concept. We still have this. We call them the big bore CB. Big bore CBs are the cylinder barrels that can be interchanged with no tools, and those go from a 5.56 up to a 308. And we had all these experts that had done all the ballistic testing and pressures of the metal that we're using, and we're using a new type of metal to be able to hold the pressure for those bigger rounds in that revolver. And so we had to go to 6 shots of all same calibers and beef up those wall thicknesses to be able to handle those big rounds. Mm-hmm. Now, everything from a 223 on down, we've changed to this really cool, I call them CB tubes. And if you can imagine what a Gatling gun looks like, all right? But if you had a Gatling gun that you could slide one of the tubes out and slide another one in, again, no tools, on the fly, so you can then customize exactly what you're shooting from a 223 to a 22. So you can make any combination, 6 of any combination caliber you want inside that. Yeah. And so cool. It lightened it up like immensely. We trimmed 3 pounds off this gun. 3 pounds.
So how much does it weigh now?
We're going to come in at just under 5 pounds, like 4 point something.
That's
pounds.
Awesome. That really is awesome.
Super lightweight. And we've allowed it so where you can buy just one single tube, okay, that's 7-inch, fully rifled, for just $33.
Wow.
Oh, wow, that's quite different.
So if you don't understand what we're talking about, the Scavenger 6 is a rifle, but it has a revolving chamber, I guess you said, like a revolver. And
cylinder, yeah.
Cylinder, yeah, exactly.
Go to scavenger6.com, and you can actually see what we're talking about.
And each cylinder...
It hasn't even been... Our website is being updated right now, so the newest look... I sent you guys the back of my business card, so maybe you guys could post it where you're at.
Yeah.
But I'm actually flying back to Chicago on the 17th to actually fire the first actual working. We had 4 of them built from them, and we're going to be firing it and doing a lot of testing with it, and we'll probably put our first order in with them that day with about 3,000 pieces. But nice. Scuttlebutt is, I've already got one guy that's going to buy 2,000 of my gun.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, now, if the reason that you call it the Scavenger 6, as in our last couple of minutes here, is as preppers, we need to consider ways to protect ourselves and our family, right? And that is, the most effective ways with firearms. But we eventually get to the point where you're going to run out of everything you have, and that's my opinion. I think times will get hard enough to where we will end up we'll be growing our own food. We're going to run out of things, including ammunition, including most everything that we can go and buy at the store. But the idea with the Scavenger 6 is that it incorporates the most common rounds. Today, from the 22 LR to, like you say, the 308, the 7.62 by 51, that can be scrounged, that can be scavenged when it hits the fan, when life changes, as we know it.
Yeah, it's not the guy that has the most guns that'll win the fight. It's who can find ammo. Ammo is the key. It's, again, working the problem backwards. Worst case scenario happens tomorrow, ammunition is going to be just coveted. It'll be more valuable than gold, silver, next to medicine and food. That's going to be your way to buy what you need and to get yourself either protection or, put that game on the table. And the nice thing is that with the Scavenger, you get to pick the right caliber for the right purpose. So if I'm hunting baby bunny foo-foo, I'm going to shoot him with my 22. If I've got a bad guy there, I'm going to slap in an AK-47 cylinder barrel. But it's all out of the same gun, and pounds equal pain. So if you're hauling around a 4-pound gun versus a 18-pound gun, that's one that fires one bullet. So, I can have my backpack that's filled with single-tube cylinder barrels that fire different rounds, and so whatever I'm scavenging for, barter for, or have to beg, borrow, steal, whatever the case may be, if I find the bullet is what makes a weapon, useful. At that point, I'm going to have a barrel that matches that bullet, and I'm still in the fight. It may not give you a ton of firepower, but if you have 6 cylinder barrels with, the same caliber, then I have 6 shots coming down range of whatever I happen to find. Or you could have a multitude of different type. Start off with a 22, maybe just have to wound them, and then go all the way up to the bigger rounds.
Well, Tim, thanks so much for joining us. We are out of time. We've come up against our break. And, again, everybody check out timralstonlive.com. Do you have a link to the Scavenger 6 there?
Scavenger6.com.
Yes, I do.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for joining us, buddy. We appreciate it. When are you going to be up to Salt Lake next?
Well, I've got a whole series coming up next year that I'm going to be doing a lot of test firing. So when I get ready to come up to Salt Lake City, I'm going to literally do a demo day up there at some of the indoor ranges so that everybody in your audience can come down, take this thing for a test drive, see what you guys think of it, meet everybody. Yeah, it's going to be a good time. So I'm hoping to start at the first of the year.
We'll definitely join you at that. Thanks for joining us today, and thank you, listeners, for being part of the show. We'll catch you on the other side of the break with more Prepper Talk Radio.
Thanks, buddy.
With Grasshopper, you get all the features